we're still talking about our theme for February, which is the growth mindset in communication. And we're looking specifically today at strategies for learning from communication mistakes and missteps and anything that we look back on where we maybe are not super proud of the way we communicated, or things that we know we could have improved upon and made better. So let's talk about that today. And I have some strategies that I want to share with you all. And we're really looking at, things like feedback, reflecting on missteps, and then taking those and learning and growing from them so that we can show up even better in our next interactions. Okay, so I want to know, what's your biggest communication win? And so for those of you watching the webinar replay, you can always comment down below in the comment section where this replay will go live under daily practice. I would love for you to think of a time when you communicated something effectively and it had a positive outcome, and then specifically what made it successful. Excellent. I love that. And you also kind of spoke to the before and after, right? Before, like even turning on your camera was a big step, and showing up like that as well. Okay, great. And then if you can think of a time that you miscommunicated and what you learned from it, you can share that too with us. Yeah, absolutely. And just being aware that, we're constantly getting feedback, right, from the people we're communicating with, and that we're also, we're providing information where they can provide feedback too. It's not just the other way around. So that's always something to think about, and trying to, even in that communication event, think about how can I say this better? How can I communicate that more effectively? It doesn't even have to happen after the social interaction takes place, but it can happen during that time as well. So I always want you to remember that the mistakes are teachable moments, right? We can always learn from them. It helps us build resilience. It helps us give us insights as to what's working, what might not be working, and then also fostering empathy so we can see things from other people's points of views, which also just helps us become more attuned with the active listening and responding really well, and making sure that, we're really understanding what someone has to say, even when they don't say it with their words necessarily. So, you can easily bounce back with more resilience when you start to do this, when you face these mistakes. Every misstep really is an opportunity to give you a lesson that you can learn from. And then ultimately, you'll take them into your personal and your professional development, because if we're learning from them, then they're going to translate into a teachable moment again. Okay, good. So what's really great about these three kind of mini strategies in overcoming the fear of failure, you can think about reframing as a great tool, which we've talked about before. Thinking about just, it's okay to be vulnerable. Even as a leader, you can show that you don't always have all the answers, and you shouldn't be expected to have all the answers. And it's so much better to say, let me check that, let me look into that, or I don't know yet, or I'm still working on that, as opposed to making something up, or, saying something like, coming up with some answer that's maybe not the best answer, not even correct. And then also thinking about, well, it's really healthy to take risks with communication, and just, not to be afraid of stepping outside of your comfort zone. So if you're, fearing maybe going to a networking event, you can think about, well, how am I going to grow from this? And just being aware that those butterflies in your stomach is actually going to be a good thing. It's going to help you, because you can use that as a kind of a metric for being on the right track, in terms of, oh, I'm challenging myself enough. I am, putting myself out there. I'm going to grow from this. If I'm afraid of going to this event, that means that, there's something in there that I need to learn, right? So just being mindful and reframing those kinds of, situations that we think of as social anxiety inducing as something we can learn from and that we should actually really make sure we do. So I have a question. How would you reframe this fear? So let's say somebody, is hesitant to speak up at a meeting, let's say, because they're afraid of, failing. Maybe they're saying the wrong thing, or their tone, or, they feel like maybe they have an accent, or they are from a different part of the US where they have a different way of, speaking, and they're in a different part of the US where that's not a communication practice, let's say, maybe. How would you coach this person to reframe that fear? What would you tell them? Let's say you're their communication coach. That's a really great mindset to help someone see, right? Because you're first starting with the essence of, what's going on in that person's mind, so that you can then say, okay, you think this way, but with a growth mindset, we can start to reframe and think, well, even if I, even if someone is at a disadvantage for whatever reason, and they started later or learned something later, that doesn't necessarily put them at a disadvantage, for life, right? They can still ramp up. They can still learn the skill. They can still, with lots of effort and persistence and consistency, get to where they're going. That's great. So, when we're thinking about having a growth mindset, especially when it comes to reflecting on communication mistakes and mishaps and anything that maybe went awry, we want to do these things, right? We want to think about, okay, actually seeking out input, right? Seeking out specific input from your colleagues, from your friends, from family members, from people in the community. You might say, oh, you might post on something and say, I practice this skill, but I want to know, what do you guys think? What do you think about this response? Always thinking about, with active listening, try to just hear the feedback. Okay. Get past the point of this being a criticism, because it's not a criticism that you need to defend. Try to think of it more as, what can I learn from this? This is really valuable information. This is important insights and intel. What can I learn from this? And then thanking people and say, look, I really appreciate you spending the time, taking the time to read that email and give me some feedback, or taking a look at my project pitch, or providing some, even if it's informal feedback, right? Showing that you're really somebody who values feedback, and you have thick enough skin that you're not worried about, getting that feedback. And then always, when we're thinking about reflecting on mistakes and missteps, the first thing you want to do is identify, like, what is it exactly that maybe was the ultimate error in the communication? Was it a certain tone of voice? Was it lack of positive body language? Was it taking something personally when it shouldn't have been taken personally? Was it maybe not enough active listening? Really trying to pinpoint the exact mistake or misstep, right? And then analyzing it. Okay, so why did this happen? Was it the people that I was interacting with? Was it because I had a migraine and I wasn't on my game? Was it because I was unprepared for that situation? Was it because I was really nervous because, for whatever reason, or maybe I had too much coffee earlier in the day and that gave me the jitters, right? You have to think about, well, what was it? What was it that caused that thing to happen? And that's sometimes hard, because we have to be really self-aware about that, right? Really self-aware, and we have to kind of step outside of ourselves in some ways and think about, like, why did that happen? And then lastly, an alternative approach. How could I have done this differently? What might have, occurred? What needed to happen for me to succeed in that, situation? Maybe I have too fewer cups of coffee. Maybe I don't have any coffee at all. Maybe, I drink water instead, or maybe I, shake out my nerves. What can you do, right? What can you do? Do you have anything like this where you are thinking about, maybe finding that, pinpointing that mistake, and then why it happened, and then what you could have done. Do you have anything that comes top of mind? If not, just reflect on it and then respond in the community post afterwards. But if there's something that pops up, just, you can feel free to share now. Excellent. Yeah. So that self-awareness, right, really makes a huge difference. And then figuring out, like, what was it that I could have done differently, or what was it that could have made this a better situation, right, in general. Excellent. Okay, good. So when we think about finding these patterns for, you know, improvement, we have to do three things. We have to first track it. So, you know, maybe documenting it, that could be one of the best ways, because you can actually see what's going on. And then look for recurring, you know, situations. Like, is it always at, you know, at the lunchtime meeting where you feel nervous? Or is it always on video calls? Or is it usually on phone calls? Or is it when you're speaking in a different language? Or is it when you're writing? What is it? And then you make those adjustments, right? So this is a great thing to be mindful of. And think about, you know, that might be, and then you can share that in the comments afterwards. With feedback, right, we always want to think, okay, what can I do? What's the action that I can take? So first you kind of make those goals, right, based on the feedback you receive. Then you rehearse a new communication technique, and then you try to implement it, right? So you got to try it out. You have to try to put yourself in a situation where you're thinking about this being an experiment, right? Using that curiosity-based, curiosity-driven, experimental mindset, because that sets you up for success. Because you're not going in there thinking I have to be perfect, right? Which is similar to your example about you feeling like you have to communicate perfectly. It's not like that at all. It's, I'm going to go into this communication event and I'm not going to try to be perfect. I'm going to try to have a learning mindset, a growth mindset. That's always so much better. So speaking of growth mindset, right, we're really trying to move away from that fixed mindset and going into that growth mindset. So, you know, thinking of it as, if I am consistent and I'm showing up, which you do, Jaspreet, that's really great, right? You show up, that is going to give you improvement. You are going to get improvement from showing up. You're going to be, you know, the more you put into something you're working on, the more you'll get out of it. And then learning from that feedback, whatever it is, embracing challenges as vehicles for growth, and then just thinking about that fixed mindset as something that you can turn around, right? So again, we all have a little bit of, many people have a fixed mindset in certain things. For many people, that can be communication. It could also be other skills. It could be, you know, anything where you feel like you can't improve on something. It might be fitness. It might be, but if we start to think about this pyramid as, you know, starting with that fixed mindset, going through and thinking about teachable moments, using that feedback, and then always saying like progress over perfection, you will start to tap into that growth mindset potential. And then of course we want to celebrate small wins, acknowledging, right, that like, oh, I did really well on that presentation. I'm really proud of myself. And then why did you do well, right? What went well? Was it because you got a workout in beforehand and you felt really energized? Was it because you slept well the night before? Was it because you prepared, right? Was it because you were just in a really good mood? And then sharing that achievement with people can also help, right? Because we like sharing success stories. We like sharing wins. We like sharing that. And then, you know, maybe there's a way to reward yourself. You know, maybe you, you know, create a chart of your wins, and you look back on that and you say, this is so great, right? My effort translates into concrete, tangible results. So do you have any wins that you want to share? Also think about, you know, sharing these lessons with our team, right? So thinking about, okay, how can I communicate this so that they learn something from it? Working together to improve skills, and saying, okay, let's take a step back from this project and think about what what can we do better here? And then always think about how can you, even if you're not a team leader or a manager or, running a company, you can still inspire a culture of innovation and learning, right? Just by doing it yourself, just by being that example, setting that example for people. So do you have any wins that you want to share that you feel like it's something that you are proud of doing or having done in the last few days or weeks? That's great. And you're starting to feel that progress, right? Not only see it maybe, but actually feel it. It's starting to believe it. Like, wow, look how far I've come. Look at, the progress I've made. And especially with you, Jaspreet, you've been in the community now for several months. You can look back on the earlier recordings of our lessons and webinars and workshops and actually see progress, which is so cool, right? It's a documentation in and of itself. Having those recordings and replays, you can look back on those and say, wow, look at where I was, look at where I am now. And this, if I keep this up, this is where I could be going, right? So that's terrific. That's really great. So what I'm going to do when I post the replay of this, I'm going to share some suggested activities. You can do one, you can do a few, you can do all of them. And then whatever you do, I really encourage you to share in the, and I'm telling this to not just you, Jaspreet, but everyone watching the replay of this class, share it, because that's how we continue the conversation. That's how you get even more and more out of this class and our community. So I know that you wanted me to show you how to set up a call. So what I'll do now is I'm going to share my screen. You can see this. Perfect. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So as you know, right, all of our, let me just move this out of the way. Let me find what I'm sharing here. Here we go. Okay. So as you know, Jaspreet and my friends watching this, we have in here, right, our content library, if it will open. Okay. All of our tons and tons of our, classes and everything. Okay. So we've done January. This is January. February, this is what we're on, right? And I will be adding today's session here. And then I know you want to know about networking, right? This one here. Okay, so member video calls, you go in and you go create. You can see all this, right? Yeah.
This option.
Go to event and then you create your event and you make a title. You go in and you add your link to your meeting. So it could be on Zoom, it could be on Google Meet, it could be on GoToMeeting, it could be join.me, right? So there you go. And then you can add an image, and then you describe your event. Casual conversation with the Explearning community. Or let's do a 20-minute workout together, right? It could be anything. Or let's discuss chapter 2 of, blah, blah, blah book we are reading, right? And you can, just, make it whatever you want to make it. And you can put the date, you can make it a repeat event. You can post it in the feed and that way it'll show up. So yeah, that's basically all you do. Super easy, super simple. And so once you do that, everyone in this space will get the notification. And so it's going to be all these people in here, right? 25 people will get that. And then that's it. Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So yeah, make sure that when the replay is live, you interact with it in some way and be on the lookout for the task associated with it. And well done today. Good job showing up. Thank you so much for saying that, Jaspreet. That makes me very happy. I'm so grateful that you shared that with me. It's my pleasure. I'm so glad that I can provide this platform for you all, and it's great that you've been enjoying it so much. So thank you so much for being here. All right. All right. So I'll see you in the next session and also in the community. Good job interacting. Good job posting. Keep it up. That's excellent. Well done. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.